Good evening, everyone. Today we're holding a press conference with regard to the Lockhart investigations that started in May. Just a few informational pieces here. I passed out a media packet for all the media outlets here regarding timelines, agencies involved, and some of the posters that are here with that packet. Just a brief synopsis of what the press conference is going to take place today is I will do some brief introductions, that you have the handouts, and I'll present Director Armold with regard to a synopsis and a statement. After that, there will be a brief time for some brief questions. First with the introductions. Directly behind me is Director Nicholas Armold, Lieutenant Brian Vandenbrink, who's in charge of the Detective Bureau, and Lieutenant Matthew Wolf in charge of the Patrol Division. At this point in time, I'm going to turn the press conference over to Director Nicholas Armold.
Good afternoon. My name is Nick Armold, and as Chief Blue just mentioned, I'm the Director of Public Safety for the City of Portage. We have requested this news conference in order to provide some updates to the Theresa Lockhart case, which began back in May of this year. It is our hopes that by doing this, we can bring some closure to the family and friends of Theresa Lockhart, while at the same time trying to connect the dots from May 18th until today. And so we can put this into context, let me quickly review how we arrived here today. On May 20th of this year, our office was contacted by an employee of the Schoolcraft School District requesting that we do a welfare check on a co-worker of theirs, 44-year-old Theresa Joan Lockhart. This employee indicated that Theresa had not reported to work on May 19th as scheduled, and that they were concerned about her whereabouts. With that request and information, an officer from the Portage Department of Public Safety Police Division was dispatched to Mrs. Lockhart's home, located in the 10,000 block of Poplar Bluff here in the city of Portage. Once at the home, the officer made contact with Mrs. Lockhart's husband, 47-year-old Christopher Charles Lockhart. After the officer inquired about the whereabouts and welfare of Mrs. Lockhart, Mr. Lockhart indicated that Theresa has done this type of thing before, leaving for days at a time, and that he was not concerned about where she was. It was also May 20th, while conducting routine patrol activities, that officers located Theresa Lockhart's vehicle, a 2006 VW Golf, parked at the Angling Road Park and Ride in the area of Center in US 131 in Portage. On May 23rd, 2017, our first press release was distributed listing Theresa Lockhart as a missing person. It was also May 23rd when we made a second attempt to contact Chris Lockhart to ask for his help in finding his wife Theresa. During this brief encounter, Mr. Lockhart indicated that he did not wish to talk to us about his wife, and that he was going to talk to his attorney. While within his rights to do so, Mr. Lockhart, invoking his desire for an attorney, coupled with his actions and unwillingness to help us find his wife, created concerns in our mind about the welfare and well-being of Theresa. While there was no evidence at the time that there was anything wrong, the Portage Department of Public Safety began what would turn out to be a 154-day investigation into the whereabouts of Theresa Joan Lockhart. So for 154 days, this agency, with the help of many other agencies, which will be mentioned in just a few moments, has spent countless hours investigating this case with the ultimate goal of finding Theresa Lockhart and determining what had happened to her. This investigation included multiple search warrants, interviews, travel outside of the state, the application of forensic technology, the use of behavioral science professionals, and we also conducted several ground, air, and waterway searches utilizing personnel, dogs, helicopters, drones, and boats. At the same time, we were mindful of the need to make notice to the community, to remind them that we had not forgotten Theresa, that we were actively looking for her, and that if anyone had any information, we wanted that information so we could follow up on it. Lockhart had made several behavioral choices in his life that ultimately led to some legal troubles, all of which were outside any connection to the case of his missing wife. It was these legal troubles that sent us to his home on Poplar Bluff yesterday morning. Yesterday, October 24th, at approximately 10:48 in the morning, our agency was contacted, provided information, and asked by the Kalamazoo Office of Community Corrections to conduct a welfare check on Mr. Lockhart at his home on Poplar Bluff. On October 24th, at approximately 4:25 p.m., officers from the Allegan County Sheriff's Office, the Michigan State Police, and the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, along with detectives from our agency, were conducting a search of an area in Allegan County, located south of M89 and east of 46th Street within the Allegan Game Area, some 50 miles from the Lockhart home. It was that location in a shallow grave that we located the body of what has recently been positively identified as Theresa Joan Lockhart. As to the note found at the residence on Poplar Bluff, not only did that contain a hand-drawn map that led us to ultimately find Theresa, but it also contained a written confession by Chris Lockhart. And while I'm not going to go into the details of the notes, Chris did state on the night of May 18th that he killed Theresa and that the next day he disposed of her body in the Allegan Game Area. Earlier today, autopsies were conducted on both Theresa and Christopher Lockhart. The initial determination as to the cause of death of Chris is listed as suicide by strangulation. It will be some time before we have any results as to the cause of death of Theresa. I can say that Theresa's family has been notified, and I ask that we all respect their privacy as they take the time to grieve and work through this terrible situation. And while the end of the case is in sight, it will be some time until we have a chance to tie up the loose ends. Our hearts as an agency, as a city, as fellow human beings go out to Theresa's family and her friends, and we hope that in the days and months ahead they will find peace and closure. As I mentioned earlier, there are a number of agencies that I would like to thank for their assistance throughout this investigation. The Michigan State Police Aviation Unit, the Michigan State Police Canine Team, the Michigan State Police 5th District Fugitive Team, the State of Michigan Office of Community Corrections, the Kalamazoo County Prosecutor's Office, the Michigan State Police Grand Rapids Crime Lab, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Allegan County Sheriff's Office, the Michigan State Police Behavioral Sciences, St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office, Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office Dive Team, Western Michigan University's School of Medicine, Michigan State Police Computer Crimes Unit, the Kalamazoo Valley Enforcement Team, Horry County, South Carolina Sheriff's Office, and Manatee County, Florida Sheriff's Office. After that list, I do not want to leave out the patrol officers, the lab technicians, the detectives, and the entire staff of the Portage Department of Public Safety for all the work and commitment they put into finding Theresa. And I want to give a special thanks to the detective in charge of the case, Derek Hess. In closing, this case never took a back seat, and we all felt the need to push hard and to work hard to find Theresa. And while no one would have wanted to conclude this way, we can at least have a bit of comfort that this gives closure to Theresa's family and her friends. And with that, we can take a few questions.
What was said inside that suicide note? Did he express any kind of remorse or anything like that?
He did express remorse and ask for forgiveness.
Did he give any reason why he did what he did?
He and Theresa were having an argument, and he just, in the note, he indicated that he just snapped.
Do you think if he hadn't left a note, you would have ever found her body?
Yeah, I think at some point somebody would have found her. That's a hunting area, and hopefully somebody would have came across her.
Director, before the apparent suicide, was your department or other law enforcement authorities close to coming to a decision on the case or presenting for charges or anything like that?
No, we were not.
And you said that he had passed by suicide. Any indication as to how, in what way?
Well, the manner of death was strangulation.
By hanging?
Correct, yeah.
And why were the Florida authorities involved? Why were you offering gratitude to the police of Florida?
Maybe Lieutenant Vandenbrink can answer that.
Theresa had a relative who had property down there where she had visited before, so we just had them go check that property to see if she was down there at all.
Is it any clearer how long he had been dead?
Well, we were called by the corrections department and indicated that he was currently at the time wearing a tether and that there was no movement on the tether for multiple hours, and that he failed to report on
10 a.m.
At 10 a.m.
He had recently gone to South Carolina and had permission to do so. It said to prepare his funeral preparations for his father. He just returned from that trip October 18th. Had his father died?
Yeah, his father had passed, yes.
Just in the last 2 weeks?
When he was out, he had passed, and then that's when Chris went out to South Carolina, I believe.
Did Chris leave any indication about what finally pushed him to this decision, this moment of doing this in the move?
No, he didn't.
How descriptive was he in finding or giving a location for you guys? Was it GPS coordinates?
No, he actually drew a map, which certainly gave us a good idea where to look. And then we made contact with one of the local DNR officers who knew exactly where that was.
You have flowers over there in front of her face, you know, a picture of her. How deeply did it really hit you guys? You guys go home every day after working a long day on this case. How did it hit you guys?
Well, I mean, you always you have a sinking feeling when you know what you know, but you can't prove it. You know, we kind of had an idea, and we just didn't have enough to run with it. So I would say everybody involved in this was thinking about it every day and going through things in their mind about what could we do next, what else can we do, and hoping for a little bit of luck as well.
When you think about this every day, did you see this sort of scenario panning out, that of Chris Lockhart taking his life? Did that ever factor in?
I don't know as if it factored in. I mean, it's always a possibility, and you know, obviously, with, if guilt was a factor, it certainly drove him to do what he did.
Although it will be some time before you can scientifically establish the cause of death, her cause of death, did he indicate how it erupted into violence and what the exchange was that led to her death?
He did.
What instruments he used?
He did, yeah.
Will you share those?
I'd rather not know.
A couple more questions, please.
Was her body found in a pretty highly visited area that sees a lot of foot traffic?
I don't think so. It was about 60 feet off of I don't know if it was a 2-track or.
Yeah, it was a wooded area pretty deep into the state game area. There were a couple roads that crossed right there, and it was about 60 feet off from each one of the roads. There are people that go back there hunting according to the DNR officer, so eventually maybe she would have been found out there.
Do you have any idea how he was familiar with that area? Did he plan? Did he look up where to go? Was that somewhere he would walk or hunt?
At this point, we have no idea whatsoever.
Were police close or on the verge of naming him a suspect or arresting him in connection to the case?
No.
Any more questions?
Was the timeline, did he indicate in the note if the timeline was somewhat consistent with him saying she left the house at 10 p.m.? Is that when he left the house with her? Did the argument happen in the home, or did it happen in the woods?
It happened in the home, and the timeline of when we could last show where she was and where somebody saw her certainly fit.
How is the family coping with this?
You know, we just sent a detective up to talk with his mother, or her mother, up in Grand Rapids, and I have not heard back from them other than the fact that they have notified her and they're there with her.
Just now or hours ago?
No, they're on their way back from Grand Rapids now, so it was just before this started.
Okay. If we can conclude this time, there's a couple of keynotes here that we want to finish up with. Is please note on your agenda any media FOIA requests that will be filed with our records division. That is the best way to get that, is through that .gov email address. Also in the packet, just make sure that you look at, as you notice, the second page involves all the assisting agencies that are listed there. We did a brief fact sheet for the events that occurred on October 24th. Another fact sheet, the timeline with regard to the missing person case. As you notice, there are two different case numbers. The first one is with the missing person case. The other one was with the death investigation on Poplar Bluff. We also added the series of press releases that were released, and the original missing person poster that went out and we posted by our agency throughout the community. I want to thank everybody for coming. Obviously, this investigation is continuing, and any further information we will follow up on at a later date. Thank you very much.